Okay, so at this point I'm going to diverge from my regular mask step, and I'm going to show you a different technique. In the box you'll find this, and this is a paper interfacing or lining, and it's very useful for the next step. So I need you to cut a piece which is approximately, let's say 3 inch by 2 inch. Okay, so a 3 inch by 2 inch piece, a nice little rectangle. I want you to take that and I want you to place it, let's say 2 fingers, no, we needed a bit more than that probably. Let's say 3 finger width from your outer edge of your mask. Right, this is the lining. Sorry, I should have mentioned that first. So you want to do this on the lining. So take your mask and let's just run a bit of a diagnostic here. You can see this is much more curved than this. That's for the nose and this is for the chin. So the more curved section is the top for your nose. So you're going to take that and you're going to lie it right side facing upwards and with the nose piece up and the chin down as if you're wearing it. You're going to take your 3 by 2 inch piece of interfacing. It could be a scrap of fabric as well. This is just quite nice because it's quite malleable. I'm going to show you a new technique which you've probably not done before, and this is a post box. It's a slit basically in the fabric that we're going to make, and that's going to allow us to put a nose wire, and if you want you can also put a filter into between the 2 layers of your mask. So take your 3 by 2 inch piece of scrap fabric or interfacing, and I want you to put it a good 2 fingers from the outside edge of the mask. And now this is where your ear is, so 2 inches, 2 fingers in like that, and just center it approximately there. Now you can go ahead if you want and put a pin in there, and then we're going to take a little ruler. I'm going to just find my little ruler, and I want you to draw a straight line down one side, and then about a 1/2 inch away I want you to draw another line, and then I want you to draw a rectangle. This is quite convenient with this fabric because if you have a look, it's actually got lines on it. So the idea is you want a little rectangle. The size is irrelevant as long as it allows you to put your lining in afterwards and your nose wire, because when you wash them you want to be able to take the nose wire out, and that's why we do this. So I want you to do that. If you prefer, take your 3 by 2 and get a ruler and do it using a proper ruler. Here's a little one that you can use and measure it. So you could measure, I mean, this little thing is probably a really ideal size, and just draw a line down each side and then join up to make a rectangle. Okay, right, so I've now drawn that onto my piece of interfacing with my ruler, and I can now pin it onto the right side of the lining of my face covering. 2 fingers from the very edge, plus a little bit if you want. It's not too precise. It doesn't have to be too precise. So in fact this one I'm going to put a little bit in just to see how different it is. So pin that down just to hold it in place while you're sewing. Now the big thing with this is that you want to change your stitch length on your machine to a very small stitch length. So your general requirement for doing a face mask, I use 2 stitch length, which is generally 2 millimeters, depending on how accurately your machine sews. And that's because the smaller your seam is, or the stitch length is, the less air and stuff that can get through your mask. And that's a good thing when there's a pandemic around. So that's what we do normally. So your normal stitch length on these masks is 2. And I'm going to reduce it down to 1 or 1.5 for this particular step of the process. We are going to start over here in the middle of our rectangle. We're going to stitch all the way around our rectangle and just go back over the first few stitches over here. When you get to your corners, remember to make sure your needle is in the down position so you're pivoting very nicely. So here goes. Start in the middle of your rectangle, not on the corner, because it's much more difficult to start in a corner and get it exactly right. So needle down as you approach the corners. The advantage of having a really short stitch length as well is that it's much easier to get your needle into the very corner of the fabric when you want to turn. So back down the third side, turn, and back down the original side, and just go a few stitches over the start of your seam. Trim off all of your stitch. Now you're thinking, what on earth is this all about? And this is where the magic starts to happen. Take your ruler and do yourself a favor and get a pen or a pencil with a decent point on it. And I want you to, down the middle of this rectangle, draw a line. Now you can draw it from seam to seam. Okay, so there you're drawing a line down the middle of your paper you're interfacing. And then I want you to draw from the corner towards the line to create a peace symbol or a Y shape. And repeat that on the other side. The exact distance to the bottom, the V of your Y shape, doesn't really matter, but it needs to be a similar width to the depth. So in that case, okay, so there we have, that's what you're after. We are now going to cut, ignore this line, you're going to cut from down the middle and then towards the corner of your squares like that. So what I do is I fold it sort of in half. It doesn't have to be precise, but you want to snip along there. So I've snipped the middle just so it gives me my line, and then I put my scissors into the gap and I snip to the bottom of the Y, and then I repeat it on the other side to the bottom of the Y, and then from the Y I go up each arm at an angle to my stitches. You need to get as close to your stitch as you can possibly get without cutting your stitches. This is the tricky bit. So you want to you want to snip towards your corner of your rectangle, all 4 corners, without clipping your stitches. And you see what we've done. So we've now got a little thing that wants to turn itself around. And what we do now is we push the paper down towards the hole on each side. So along the long sides and along the short sides. And now what we do is we push all of this paper, or your fabric if you've used fabric, through the hole. You're going to post it through the letterbox. Okay? Post all the paper through the letterbox so it comes out on the wrong side. And you want to flatten it. Okay. I'm going to use my nail just to crease that there, and that is a welt. Okay, these are used on pockets, on trousers, skirts, and all sorts of other things, but the point is that is how you make a bound buttonhole and also a welt pocket. So that is what you want to be left with. So to help you out, I'm going to repeat it on my other face mask. To the machine, I'm going to do my stitching all the way around. I'm at my first corner. Make sure the needle is in the fabric and pivot on the needle. And then go down the long end of your little post box. If you've used pins, take them out. Don't forget, for you newbies, to drop your presser foot down before you sew again, otherwise you will knot up the machine. And when you get back to the beginning, go back over the original stitches, just a couple of them, to anchor it nicely in place. So I've now sewn around that. Can't see it in the white, but I have. I now take my pen. Need to be reasonably accurate with this, but it's not going to be the end of the world. So I'm going to just show you how you can actually just do it freehand. The important thing is that there's a straight line on the V or the Y shape where it joins the middle. So your middle cut is in the middle of your rectangle, and then you're going to cut that first, and then you cut from the end there towards each corner. So you've got two Y's touching in the middle. So how I did that was I folded my little rectangle of interfacing in half, and I put a little snip just along there so I can get access to the rest of the line. And I cut to the bottom of the Y's stem, turn it round, repeat that on the other one, cut to the V, and then I go from the bottom of that V and I clip as close to the corner as I can get. I mean, literally, it's going to feel like you're about to cut your stitches. So what happens if you do cut your stitches? Well, it'll fray. So what you're going to do is go around the box a little bit bigger, all the way around, another row of stitching so that it encloses it, and then you will have rescued that. So remember, now we've got our letterbox, which is now open. We are going to just crease these bits of interfacing down towards the middle of the post box, and then we are going to push all of this through the hole. We're posting all of this through the hole to the opposite side. So now we have this paper on the wrong side of our fabric instead of on the right side. So when you thought, oh my gosh, why have we got the paper on the right side? It's because we are going to push it through to the other side, and you have a really lovely welt. And through that you will be able to change your nose wire and also put a filter in as well. So that is how to make a welt pocket or a welt hole. And I'm going to pause there for a minute and have something to drink so I don't start coughing. And then we're going to put our face mask together. So I'll see you back in a minute. Bye.